All right, ready for this? We're going deep on something pretty crucial today. Manual software testing.
Yeah, manual testing.
It might sound kind of old school, with all the automation we've got these days.
Right.
But stick with us on this one.
Oh, yeah.
Because even with all those fancy algorithms and automated checks, there are some bugs, some quirks that only a real human can catch.
Yeah.
You really need that human touch.
It's like
It's like the difference between
it's
like the difference between using spell check and having a real editor.
Oh, that's a good analogy.
A computer can catch typos, but it can't really understand the nuances of language.
Right. Exactly.
And the same goes for software. You need that human perspective to really assess quality.
So it's not just about does it work, but does it work well for a real person?
Exactly.
I like that.
It's about user experience, usability, those kinds of things.
So give me the rundown. What exactly does a manual tester do?
Well, imagine you're using a piece of software for the first time.
You're clicking buttons, filling out forms, navigating menus.
Yep.
A manual tester does all of that, but with a very specific goal in mind.
Which is?
To find bugs, to break things, to uncover anything that feels off or doesn't behave as expected.
Okay, so they're like digital detectives, hunting down those pesky glitches.
Yeah, that's a great way to put it. And the cool thing is you don't need to be a coding whiz to do it.
Really?
Nope. It's more about having a keen eye for detail, a knack for finding problems, and a genuine curiosity for how things work.
Now, that's encouraging. I like that anyone can do this.
Absolutely.
So when is manual testing most crucial? When is it really the make or break factor?
I'd say it's especially valuable in the early stages of development, when you're laying the foundation.
I got it.
You want to make sure that core functionality is solid before you start adding all the bells and whistles.
Makes sense, like building a house. Got to get the foundation right.
Exactly. And it's also super important for those aspects of software that are harder to automate.
Like what?
Usability testing, for example.
Okay.
Or exploratory testing, where you're basically trying to think like a user and explore the software in creative ways.
Interesting. So a computer can't really replicate that kind of intuitive exploration?
Not quite. Not yet, anyway. That's where the human touch comes in.
Now, our source material emphasizes that manual testing isn't just about finding bugs.
Right.
It's about building a mindset.
It is.
A way of approaching software development and really any problem solving.
That's a really good point.
It's like learning the rules of the road, before you even get behind the wheel.
Absolutely. By learning manual testing, you develop this critical eye for potential problems, and you start thinking about software from both the user's and the developer's perspective.
That's powerful to see both sides.
It's a valuable skill set, even if you eventually move on to automation or other areas of tech.
I'm sold. You don't need to be a tech wizard to start manual testing.
Not at all.
That's fantastic news.
It's an accessible field, very beginner-friendly.
All right, so you've convinced me on the why, but let's get into the how. The source breaks it down into 8 steps.
8 steps, yes.
Should we walk through those?
Let's do it.
All right, step 1.
Step 1, and this is super important, is understanding the requirements.
Requirements.
It's like reading a recipe before you start baking. You need to know what you're trying to make.
So we need to know what the software is supposed to do before we can test if it actually does it.
Exactly. You can't judge success without knowing what the goal is.
Okay, that makes sense.
So you need to review all the documentation, the specs, talk to the developers.
Got it. So it's not just about reading documents, but also having conversations and really getting a feel for the purpose of the software.
Exactly. It's like detective work.
I like that. So we're gathering clues.
Yes.
And the more we understand those requirements, the better our testing will be.
Absolutely. You'll be able to anticipate potential issues, design better tests, and provide more valuable feedback to the team.
All right, we've got our blueprint. What's step 2?
Step 2 is creating a test plan.
Uh-oh. Test plan sounds official.
It is, but don't worry. It doesn't have to be super complicated.
Okay.
Think of it like your roadmap for testing.
Okay, a roadmap.
It outlines the scope, the goals, what you're going to test, the resources you need, and the timeline.
I see. So it's all about planning and organization before we even start clicking buttons.
You got it. A well-defined test plan keeps your testing focused and organized. Make sure you're covering all the important stuff.
So it's like that saying, fail to plan, plan to fail.
Exactly. It also helps you track your progress and communicate your findings effectively.
All right, I'm starting to see the value here.
Good.
What's next?
Step 3 is where we get down to the nitty-gritty writing test cases.
Test cases.
This is where you actually outline the specific steps
Okay.
you'll take to test each feature
I see.
and what you expect to happen.
Okay, so if I'm testing a login page, a test case might be enter a valid username and password, click login, and expect to see my dashboard.
Yeah, exactly. You got it.
But I'm guessing there's a bit more to it than that.
There is.
Yeah.
Okay, tell me more.
Each test case needs to be really clearly defined with precise steps,
Okay.
the expected results, and space to record what actually happens.
So it's not just about doing the actions, but documenting everything very carefully.
Yeah, like a scientist taking notes during an experiment.
That's a good analogy.
Because that documentation is crucial for identifying bugs, tracking your progress, and communicating with the developers.
All right, so we've got our requirements, our plan, our test cases. What's next?
Okay, now we need to set the stage.
Oh,
This is step 4, setting up the test environment.
okay.
So we're going to try and replicate the real-world conditions as closely as possible.
How do we do that?
Well, think about it. If we're testing a mobile app, we don't want to just test it on the latest, greatest smartphone with a super fast connection.
Right, because that's not how most people will be using it.
Exactly. We need to think about different operating systems.
Different network speeds, screen sizes, even the type of data they're using.
The more realistic, the better.
Precisely. The more realistic our testing environment, the more reliable our results will be.
Makes sense. So we've set the stage. Time to roll camera.
Yeah,
Action.
exactly. Step 5 is all about executing those test cases.
Okay.
The moment of truth.
Time to put on that detective hat. Carefully follow your steps and look for any clues that something isn't right.
This is exciting. What kind of clues are we talking about?
Anything that's different from what we expected, could be a total system crash,
Oh, no.
a tiny visual glitch,
Uh-oh.
or even something that just feels clunky or unintuitive.
Got it. So we're not just checking if the software works. We're assessing the whole user experience.
Exactly. That's the heart of manual testing.
Okay, so picture this. We're clicking through the app. You're filling out forms.
Yep.
We're basically poking at the software from every angle.
That's right. Testing it.
And then, bam, we find a bug.
You got it.
What happens next? Okay, that's where step 6 comes in reporting bugs.
Bug report time.
This is where clear communication is key.
So it's not enough to just send a message saying, hey, this thing's broken.
Nope, not at all.
We need to be a little more specific.
Much more.
Give me the details.
You need to describe the bug really clearly.
Okay.
The steps to reproduce it,
Mm-hmm.
what environment it happened in,
Got it.
and any other information that might be helpful.
Like what?
Screenshots or videos can be super helpful.
Ah, that makes sense.
Imagine you're a detective presenting evidence to the jury.
Okay.
You need to be thorough and precise.
So we've filed our bug report case closed, right?
Well, not quite.
What else?
Remember, the goal isn't just to find bugs.
Right.
It's to make sure they get fixed and that they don't come back to haunt us.
So it's like a horror movie sequel. We don't want that.
Exactly. And that's where steps 7 and 8 come in, retesting and regression testing.
Okay, those sound kind of similar. Break it down for me.
Sure. So retesting is pretty straightforward. Once the developers think they've squashed that bug,
They think they fixed it.
you go back and repeat the test case that uncovered it just to make sure it's really gone.
Double checking our work. I like it.
Exactly. It's essential.
And regression testing.
This is where things get interesting. Regression testing is all about making sure that fixing one bug hasn't created new problems somewhere else.
Oh, like a domino effect.
Yeah, kind of. You fix one thing and it might accidentally break something else.
That sounds tricky.
It can be, especially in large, complex software systems.
I bet.
So regression testing helps to ensure that the software stays stable and functional,
Even with all these changes happening.
even with all the tweaks and fixes going on.
Okay, so we've walked through all 8 steps of the manual testing process.
We have.
Very thorough, very impressive.
Yeah, it's a solid process.
But I gotta say, it also sounds like there could be some bumps in the road, some challenges along the way.
Oh, absolutely. Manual testing has its own set of hurdles.
Like what?
Well, one of the biggest is just the repetitive nature of some tasks.
I could see that.
You know, running the same tests over and over again, especially after small code changes, can get pretty tedious.
Yeah, it's like watching the same movie scene on repeat,
Right.
except you're looking for tiny little differences each time.
Exactly. It can get monotonous.
Why do we deal with that?
That's where automation can be a huge help.
Bringing in the robots.
Once you've got that solid foundation of manual testing, You can start to automate some of those repetitive tasks.
Got it. So free up the human testers for more interesting stuff.
Exactly. Let them focus on those complex and nuanced areas that really require that human touch.
So it's not a case of manual versus automated.
Right.
It's about finding the right balance.
Exactly. Using both strategically to get the best results.
Now, I imagine there's also the challenge of limited coverage.
Yeah, that's a big one.
No matter how thorough we are, we can't possibly test every single scenario, every single combination of actions.
It's true. It's like trying to catch every fish in the ocean.
Wow, yeah, good analogy.
With just one fishing rod.
You're going to miss a few.
You are. There are just too many variables out there.
So how do we prioritize? How do we choose what to focus on?
That's where your deep understanding of the requirements comes in.
Back to that detective work.
You need to know what matters most.
The critical stuff.
And make sure those areas are thoroughly tested.
So it's about working smarter, not harder.
Absolutely.
Knowing what to target.
Prioritization is key.
And of course, we can't forget the human factor.
Oh, yeah.
Human error.
It happens.
Even the best testers.
We all make mistakes.
So how do we minimize those slip-ups?
Well, good documentation is crucial.
Okay.
Checklists can be super helpful. And having a fresh pair of eyes review your tests.
Yeah, so teamwork and collaboration are important here.
Absolutely.
Now, our source material offers some great tips for beginners getting started with manual testing.
Oh, yeah, there are some good ones.
I particularly like the one about starting simple.
Yes, that's a great one.
Don't try to tackle a huge, complex system right out of the gate.
Exactly. Start with something small and manageable.
Okay, baby steps.
Like learning to ride a bike. You wouldn't start on a mountain bike trail, right?
Definitely not.
You'd start with training wheels on a nice flat surface.
Build up those skills.
Exactly. Build up your confidence, get a feel for the process.
So what other tips did you find helpful?
Oh, communication is key.
Oh,
I know, as a tester, you're the bridge between the developers and the users.
The translator.
You gotta be able to articulate what you find clearly, both verbally and in writing.
So speaking both languages.
Exactly. The language of code and the language of user experience.
Got it. Anything else?
Don't underestimate the power of checklists.
Checklist.
They might seem simple,
Yeah.
but they can be lifesavers.
How so?
They help you stay organized
Okay.
and make sure you're not missing any crucial steps.
It's like having a co-pilot in the cockpit.
Yeah, making sure you don't skip any pre-flight checks.
I like that analogy. Safety first.
And finally, and this is super important, never stop learning.
Never stop learning.
The world of software testing is always changing.
It's evolving.
New tools, new techniques, new best practices popping up all the time.
So how do we keep up?
Stay curious, experiment, keep honing your skills.
It's a journey.
It is an exciting one.
The more you learn,
The better you become.
and the more valuable you are.
To any team.
All right, we've covered a lot of ground today, haven't we?
We have.
What is manual testing?
Mm-hmm.
Why it's important?
Yeah.
The steps involved.
Challenges.
The tips for success.
It's been a deep dive.
But before we wrap up, I want to circle back to something you mentioned earlier.
Okay.
Manual testing isn't just about software.
It's not.
It's a mindset,
It is
a way of thinking.
a problem-solving approach.
That can be applied to all sorts of things.
Absolutely.
So outside the world of software, give me an example.
All right. Let's say you're planning a trip.
Okay, vacation.
You could apply these same principles of manual testing
To plan a trip.
to make sure it's a smooth and enjoyable experience.
Okay, walk me through this.
All right. So first you define your requirements.
My requirements for vacation.
Exactly. Where do you want to go?
Yeah.
What do you want to do?
Hmm.
What's your budget?
I see. So it's like understanding those software specifications.
It is. Then you would create a test plan,
Okay.
which is basically your itinerary.
My itinerary.
It outlines the steps you'll take,
Mm-hmm.
the places you'll visit,
Okay.
the activities you'll do.
I see. So that's like our test cases.
Exactly.
Right. The specific actions, the things we're going to try out.
It is. And just like in software testing, you want to think about different scenarios, potential problems.
Oh, yeah. Like what if...
What if your flight gets delayed?
Oh, no.
What if the restaurant you want to try is all booked up?
Good point. Yeah, you don't want to be scrambling at the last minute.
Ex-
So thinking about these things in advance, that's part of the testing process.
It is. It helps you prepare and hopefully avoid some frustration.
Wow, I never thought of trip planning that way.
That's all about testing.
It's like I'm testing the software of my vacation.
You got it. And by applying those principles of manual testing, you can create a much more enjoyable, stress-free experience.
I love that idea.
It's all connected.
This is really eye-opening. I'm seeing manual testing everywhere now.
It's a powerful mindset.
It's like a secret code for navigating the world.
It is, in a way.
So we've talked about manual testing in software development. We've even applied it to trip planning.
Right.
Any other unexpected places where these principles might come in handy?
How about something creative?
Okay.
Let's say you're designing a board game.
Ooh, a board game. Fun.
You could use manual testing to make sure that game is fun, balanced, engaging.
Okay, yeah, I could see that.
Gather your friends, have them play test it.
Play testing, that's the manual testing part.
It is observe their reaction.
Take notes.
See what works, what doesn't.
I love that.
You're testing the game mechanics,
Yeah.
looking for loopholes, exploits.
Making sure the rules make sense.
Exactly.
So it's like we're all manual testers in our own way.
We're constantly experimenting, observing, refining.
Always looking for ways to improve.
Whether it's for ourselves or for others.
It's a mindset.
It is, and that might be the most valuable takeaway from our deep dive today.
I think you're right. We've learned that manual testing is so much more than just a set of technical skills.
It is.
It's a way of thinking.
A problem-solving approach.
That we can apply in countless ways.
And even in this age of automation.
Right.
That human element, that ability to understand and respond to those nuances of experience.
It's still crucial.
Absolutely.
All right, as we wrap up our deep dive into the world of manual testing, we want to leave you with a challenge.
A challenge.
Take a look around your own world.
Yes.
Where can you apply these principles?
Where can you...
How can you use this knowledge to improve your work, your hobbies, even your everyday life?
The possibilities are endless.
We've only scratched the surface here.
There's so much more to explore.
And remember, you don't need to be a tech expert to get started.
Not at all.
All you need is a curious mind.
And a willingness to dive in.
So go out there, start testing, and most importantly,
have fun with it.
On that note, we'll leave you to ponder the possibilities.
Until next time.
Happy testing.